Are we going, Linda? Yes. We're ready. That was very satisfying. All right. Welcome, members of the Joint Conference Committee. Good to see you here. We are on our final actions here. Before we finalize this joint conference report for our colleagues. I know that there's some kind of technical changes and updates we need to go through regarding the actions that we took Wednesday night. And I think Mr. Richards from LSO will help walk us through those. My mic is on. It's pretty close. But are you having trouble hearing me?
It's just not picking up the mic.
Pretty close. Just let me know. Maybe it's not working. Yeah, I'll try a different mic. I'll speak really loud. Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee. One second. Volume is not working. Good afternoon, members of the committee, Madam Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman, presiding officers. Thank you for your indulgence. You met about 36 hours ago. We have some draft documents in front of you. They're draft for a few big reasons. We've been asked by several of your colleagues, are any of these things final? And quite frankly, there are some substantive matters that need to be addressed. I think you left that open in terms of the budget balancers and where funds end up. We also wanted you to have an opportunity to see the exact language on the Joint Conference Committee report that we have before you. So you have 5 documents before you. The first one is the largest. It's a tabloid version of the JCC report. And this is just a working document. It has all of the Ds, As, and DFAs. And we did add some additional amendments because this is a free committee. So there are some 96.1.2 versions. We've also put in blue in any of the amendments that were further amended, what those changes were in terms of a summary of the activities. I suspect most of your colleagues will want to walk through that when you present on the floor. But at least to begin with, I would like to direct your attention to the actual report. And the reason why is because that's what matters. That's what's going into law, not just our summary of the report. So this includes two different documents. One is about an 18-page, 8.5 by 11, and under your rules and general procedures, you just have a list of adopted and deleted amendments. So we provide you a cheat sheet or a summary sheet, which is a 1-page, which tells you in parenthetical phrase, staying on one line, what that amendment is that you adopted. So oftentimes the floors like that rather than, hey, you adopted 12 amendments and we're not going to tell you, which ones. This identifies each of those. So I'll run through that, and then I do want to visit with you about the language if that's acceptable to the committee. You adopted House Second Reading Amendment number 7. You added $15.1 million for a land swap. That was a military and state building commission. You also, and you'll see that this in the text of the report, you made a deposit into the Common School Permanent Land Fund in the amount of $15.1 million. I believe that was Madam Co-Chairman's motion during the JCC. You adopted House Second Reading Amendment number 12, which was $350,000 and 1 FTE for a double filling of a new executive director. And according to testimony in HAC this morning, the executive director of that commission issued his resignation or intent to resign this morning. House second reading amendment number 13, you're providing $343,000 for 5 AWACS for race day staffing. Again, this is not general funds, this is gaming commission funding. House second reading amendment number 18, you provided $251,000 for a trauma designation in the Department of Health. This was a mirror amendment on both sides. House second reading amendment number 21, you added a total of $1 million for an increase for foster rate care providers. You may recall that the governor recommended a 75% of the results of that rate-based study, and this amount brings it up to the full 100% pursuant to the study. You adopted House second reading amendment number 26, which provided for $2.5 million in matching funds for the College of Agriculture and specified particular areas of research and programming, including range and rangeland management. This was an identical amendment on both sides. House second reading amendment number 39, this was also identical on both sides, and it conforms with the governor's preference on the split between drinking water state revolving fund and clean water state revolving fund for a total of $24 million. There was no change in dollars in that amendment. House second reading amendment number 41 added the governor's office for a review of the performance compensation study, and that included no money, and this applies to the state treasurer's office and Wyoming Retirement System investment professionals. House second reading amendment number 47 authorized the governor to access funds for fire suppression reimbursement in a 3-tiered manner: the emergency account, the LSRA, the emergency account, public welfare account, or fund appropriation, and then the LSRA through borrowing. This was a mirror amendment on both sides. House second reading amendment number 47, House second reading amendment number 54, Division 1, provided $2.4 million in increased general funds for group homes, RTCs, and BOCES. This is part of the similar issue of the foster care, bringing the 75% rate reimbursement up to 100%. House second reading amendment number 75 added the governor's office budget system review. Previously, it was the executive branch was included, but you specified that the governor or his office specifically should be involved. There's no money associated with that amendment. House third reading amendment number 1, you adopted the House position, which provided $5.5 million for hazmat, as well as weapons and equipment related to weapons of mass destruction, ERTs, emergency response teams. House third reading amendment number 21, it removed a budgetary requirement on the Wyoming Business Council to include federal funds. Really, it was a venture capital pool for federal funds, and you removed the requirement to include that in the budget. House third reading amendment number 27, this applied or required that the Department of Education document and include support for ag programs, specifically FFA, in their ongoing standard budget. House third reading amendment number 28 makes the Wyoming Gaming Commission race day staff effective immediately. I believe that was a Representative Zwanitzer amendment, and recognizing that May will start some of those races, the desire was to have the funds available this spring. House third reading amendment number 29 clarified language on the Wyoming Gaming Commission study. I believe this was a Senator Ellis amendment on the floor, and you had a like amendment on the House side. Mirror. House third reading amendment number 36. This was a Larson amendment authorized up to $13 million in construction funds for the Wyoming State Hospital demolition. House third reading amendment number 76 and 76 and 86 provided the House position on conditions of the sale of the Kelly parcel. 86 provided for hunting and grazing in perpetuity, and 76 made a condition of the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan a condition on that purchase. It also allowed some purchases of land within the checkerboard or land swaps. House third reading amendment number 81 put some limitations on the demolition that it will occur at the Wyoming State Hospital. That concludes all of the adopted House amendments. Are there any questions? On the Senate side, and maybe I'm not going fast enough or too fast, Senate second reading amendment number 5, It removed the limitation on the Secretary of State for out-of-state litigation language. Second reading amendment number 10 on the Senate side put ag in the classroom, which is operated with the Department of Agriculture, into the standard budget. That had been a footnote for about 3 or 4 biennia, and this no money involved moves it to the standard budget. Senate second reading amendment number 30. This was a mirror amendment on both sides, and it removes $700,000 from the Wyoming Tourism Board using their own funds for entry fees and expenses related to the Rose Parade. Senate second reading amendment number 45, also a mirror amendment, authorized the Office of Administrative Hearings, that's OAH, to provide services to the community colleges. No funding involved. Senate second reading amendment number 47 removed a $200 million transfer to the large school capital construction account. This is the first one I do want to pause on because I believe this was Representative or Senator Garew's amendment. Technically, he did amend to delete and further amend, and when we looked at the ramifications of that amendment, it really was an adopt and then subsequently amend to provide for $150 million for a new high school capital construction. So if you wanted to, and the reason why we put adopt is so we don't have to reprint the amendment in its entirety on the subsequent pages. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention if you wanted to take action or overrule us.
Madam Chairman, my motion would be that we just adopt staff's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hand up. Oh, hand up, Brett. Hands up. All those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed, raise your hands. All right, that motion has passed.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. The next item is second reading amendment number 49. This removed the statutory definition that was amended for the period of the budget relating to the definition of K-12 school district average daily membership, or ADM. That is now removed from the bill. Senate second reading amendment number 54 removes the section 300, which would have provided $3.48 million for the employee share to be paid for by the employer for retirement for the period of the budget. Senate second reading amendment number 56 is an identical amendment on both sides, provided $75,000 with $37,000 of that effective immediate for the Spanish-American War Monument. Senate third reading amendment number 1 provided $20,000. This was a mirror amendment, general fund for the Homeland Security Lifesaver Program for an expansion study. Senate third reading amendment number 14 removed $1.7 million of general funds for the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the University of Wyoming and prohibits expenditures of funds, be it general funds, federal funds, or other funds of the university for such purposes. Senate third reading amendment number 21 removed $2 million from the Wyoming Business Council Economic Development Lab, a budget reduction of $2 million general funds. Senate third reading amendment number 24 is no new money, but provided language giving preference to Wyoming companies where possible in the Stable Token Commission contracts. Senate third reading amendment number 26 reduced 1 FTE in the Department of Education. Third reading amendment number 34 added $1.9 million for charter school leases. This was a mirror amendment on both sides. Senate third reading amendment number 52, mirror amendment, authorized a previous appropriation for purposes of the shooting task force to allow them to use consultants. That concludes all of the adopted amendments, and we can jump now to page 4. And this won't take that long, but I do think it's important for the committee to understand the language which incorporates your action taken on Tuesday evening. On page 4, page 1, line 9 and line 14.
This document?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So I'm looking at the report itself.
The 18-page document, yeah.
Page 1, line 9 and line 14 are additions to the catch title, the long title of the budget. And specifically, this joint conference committee and the amendments adopted by both floors include now capital construction, includes rulemaking by the Department of Education for purposes of mental health K-12 grants. And that second area is the addition to the language to provide for ARPA to be included in the budget. The next item is page 4, line 11. This is the ARP-D, or American Rescue Plan Act direct funds. This is a definition you've seen several times before in 2022 and 2023. Page 5, line 7 and line 8, page 5, line 7 and page 8, line 17 provide $750,000 and the House position language for reimbursement of volunteer law enforcement officers to assist on border security efforts. Then the next one, page 5, line 8, and if you'll flip over to page 5 of the document, footnote number 9, this was a mere amendment but included a technical correction within it. You are authorizing $850,000 of funds appropriated from FNRPA, or the Federal Natural Resource Policy account, for 2 full-time positions within the Wyoming County Commissioners Association for their activities on federal natural resource interests. So no new language, but specifying no new money, specifying $850 for that purpose. Page 24, line 20, and page 27, line 2, that is your reduction of the JCC's position for the Arboretum. The House position was $5 million, the Senate position was 0, the negotiated position is $3.5 million.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on that, Don. And the question is whether or not there's sufficient language to allow the state parks to expend dollars. We direct the dollars, but I don't know if we give them authority to actually spend it.
Mr. Chairman, the final language will read, of this general fund appropriation, $3,500,000 is appropriated for operations, site improvement, facility stabilization, major maintenance, and up to 2 at-will employee contract positions at the High Plains Research Station and Arboretum, as determined by the Director of the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources, and the appropriation shall not be transferred or expended for any other purpose. So they can't spend it on boating or trails. And it looks like they have sufficient authority.
Okay, thank you.
Continuing on, I'm on page 5 of the Conference Committee report, and referencing the budget bill, page 29, line 8, line 18, line 19, and lines 21 through 23 all relate to an additional $4 million of Wyoming Natural Resource Trust Fund, general funds, but to that board for purposes of invasive species, specifically grasses. That is added to $5 million that's already in the bill, so you can see that it brings it up to the $9 million. And you've made those grants to entities like weed and pest districts. And then lines 21 through 23, that's the elimination of the 3-to-1 matching. Now we're on page 34, line 16, 17, and then the top of the next page, 37, lines 20, 21, 23, 24. All of that language, all the way to page 38, line 4, is the House position in terms of amount of $12,290,000 for preschools that serve children with developmental disabilities. On the top of page 6, all of that is cleanup, moving it to the Senate position. So these are from general funds, not school foundation funds. And then on page 38, line 4, this one is the important one. This is the Trump language. So I note that Senate File 19 is currently on the Senate floor. I didn't see if you concurred or not concurred this morning, but there is a tension between those two bills. That Senate File 19 has a $16 million appropriation. This is not the most elegant language. I'll be the first to say that, because you're reaching into another bill. It would be ideal for a drafting perspective to have one amount in one bill. Unfortunately, that's not the case that we're left with, but I wanted you to be aware. We think it's fairly clear for the state auditor, the Department of Health, and the Attorney General's office to follow that this is one appropriation in the amount of $12.29 million. I fully admit it is not an elegant solution. Next, on page 48, the footnote and the addition of $2.5 million through the balance of page 6 is for an additional $2.5 million for national championship air races. Now, this motion was made by Senator Driscoll, I believe, on Tuesday night, and it was for matching funds. But I had also heard some additional questions about whether or not that match should be mandatory or incentivized, and I wanted to get your reaction to that.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Co-Chairman.
I think the language that we had talked about was to provide a one-to-one match and pick the language, but to the best of the ability for those funds. Is there a better language to use there?
Senator Driscoll?
Madam Chairman, I am full agreement. They need to be matched. You've got non-state funds, so it can't be other government funds. One-to-one match.
Thank you. We'll make that revision if that is the intent.
Madam Chairman, just to make
Co-Chairman?
it clear for staff, I would make that motion to clarify that language if I have a second.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hands. All those opposed, raise your hands. Representative Henderson is not on the committee, which is why he's not voting, but he's here as a member of JAC. Thank you.
Thank you. On the top of page 7 of the report, we're now moving to page 49, line 15, and page 55, line 24. This is a footnote that you added without funds, directing the university to review opportunities for expanded medical education. We use the exact language that was adopted on the House. Page 53, line 1, snuck in there, is just one of the technical corrections. This was one of the technical corrections that was adopted on both sides. It has no material impact on any funding. Page 56, line 4, line 12, and line 13 all relate to an additional $250,000